Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bleakheaven. Once again, I am your host, the Birdman, and today we have back with us the creator of Bleakheaven, Mr. Stanley Bostwick. Hello, sir.
I feel like creator is a strong word, even though it's true. Okay. I feel more like a curator.
The curator.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, that's better than creator. I guess it's more subtle.
Yeah, more subtle. It's not just mine, right? Like, I created it, sure, but, it wouldn't have happened, especially without Cassie or even you and the other writers and artists, so...
Oh, yeah. We've got quite the community.
Yeah, it's growing, and it's getting stronger and better every day.
Oh, yes. And speaking of getting stronger and better every day, I think we've come together to talk about your Kickstarter. So
the Kickstarter launches Friday the 16th of April.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Let's just start from the lower tier and work our way up. Let these people know what they could get on that Kickstarter.
Oh, sure.
So what's the lowest tier?
The lowest tier is $1, and that's just a digital reward. It's a background for your desktop. It's a high quality image of that first panel from Bleakheaven. In the first issue, there's the cathedral opposite the city with the night sky, and it's a really nice landscape that really sets the scene, and it's one of my favorite panels of the book.
That's not bad. I like that. What's the next tier?
The next tier is a copy of the next issue of Welcome to Bleakheaven. It's going to be another flip book, like the first and second issue.
Yeah.
The first side, which is number 3, is called An Important Job, and that's the cover that Walden Wong did. That was the first piece I commissioned him to do for the book.
The sweet one with the freaky alien and the,
Yeah, like the doll monster, and then the dragons in the background, and then he's fighting one of the characters, one of the villains, actually, of the main series.
Very sweet, very sweet. And so you say it's a flip book. Are we going to get, the 4th book on the back?
Yeah, number 4 is going to be on the back, and that's with Bo. He's the, redhead science guy that kind of looks out of place in our poster.
Sure.
I like to call it sort of a bottle episode, if you get the sitcom sort of reference.
Yeah. Exactly. The filler.
Kind of, yeah. It's just him in his laboratory doing his thing.
Nice.
And there's some fun horror suspense moments, and it's, he's just kind of like a mad scientist. So we'll go in depth in his character, and that cover is being worked on right now. Hopefully that'll be up in a couple weeks, and we can put that on the Kickstarter too as an image to show everybody what the second book will look like.
I don't know if you can tell me this. Who's doing the cover for that?
It's going to be done by an independent artist, Yasmin Tatiana, and she was referred to me through Eric. She did Eric's little rogue trader character.
Oh, very cool.
Cassie's more in charge of that book than I am. I wrote it, but Cassie's taken over the editorial role a little bit more.
Sure. Just
because Bo is her character. She created Bo for the universe, and so she wants it to be done right,
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's her character. You want it to be done specifically brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. So Cassie and Yasmin have been working closely on the creation of that cover, and Rufus is going to be doing the interior artwork for that. So yeah, Rufus is doing the artwork for that, and Josh again is coming back to do issue number 3, the interior artwork.
Sweet. So issue 3 and 4, the flip book.
So the next tier is our Welcome to Bleakheaven Spider-Wolf t-shirt. It's a design that Josh initially did for our Halloween event last year. I made it a little bit more unique by adding Welcome to Bleakheaven to it. So it's a different shirt. Not a lot of people were able to get it last year, so I thought this was a good opportunity to get a really cool Spider-Wolf shirt with the Spider-Wolf face and the fangs and everything.
Oh, for sure. It looks metal in my opinion, yeah. What, and I think that's the $30 tier.
Yep, that's the $30 tier. And then the next tier is the $50 tier, and that will come with the poster, the art poster of Bleakheaven.
Sure.
So we have a Welcome to Bleakheaven poster, and that's one of my favorite things up on the shop, up on our page, whatever. We have the regular poster up. It's one of my favorites because that's the first, real piece of art that we got for Bleakhaven.
Oh, cool.
So before that point, we just had concept art and we just had ideas, and we didn't really see anything come to life fully until Josh, Rufus, and Pibby really came together, and they did the pencils, inks, and color. And they came together and did this character poster for Welcome to Bleakhaven that features all the characters that will be appearing in the series and in the later main story.
Oh, cool. I looked at the poster too, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I wanted to highlight the art of Bleakhaven. I wanted to highlight the process of comic book art in general.
Sure.
So in one corner is Josh's pencils, and in the middle there's a strip of just the inks from Rufus, and then the opposite corner has the coloring.
So you can see the before, the middle, and the after.
Yeah,
you know,
the process. The poster comes with the digital wallpaper and the book, and I think that the t-shirts do too.
Yeah.
I know everything comes with the digital wallpaper just because it's something we can throw in for anything.
Sure.
For the next tier is the $100 tier, and that's the art book. And that's going to be coming with the poster as well, because they kind of go hand in hand, because the cover of the art book, it was, again, done by Walden Wong. It's an Kickstarter exclusive. We're never going to use this cover again.
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of thing where there's a mixture of the pencil work, the inking, and the color, and that was all done by Walden.
In the book, like, what can you see in the book? Does it show you, like, I imagine it probably shows you, like, the befores of some art, like the beginnings and the inks and stuff, or before it's inked and stuff.
Yeah, so in the book, it's broken down into sections, and I'm actually not writing it. Donald Roos is writing it. He was on the show a while ago. You know Donald.
Oh, of course, the lead pessimist himself.
The lead pessimist. He's writing the book, and he's been doing a really good job. He's got the structure down, and he's just writing a bunch of insights. Basically, he's been interviewing me and Josh and Rufus about how we came up with stuff, what we did, and all that sort of stuff. So, and he's distilling it in these little, like, anecdotes and other kind of stories and descriptions about the art. And that's going to feature a lot of the original concept art that Josh did for Bleakhaven before it was really anything. Back when we were just focused on the TV show, we did the concept art. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of that concept art's going to be in there, never before seen versions of the Scullivan, stuff like that.
Very cool.
Because it actually took us a while to make Scullivan the way he looks now.
Yeah.
Originally, Josh gave him, like, full bone armor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then we just kind of cut it down and tried to simplify it for the page and tried to make it more manageable for him and still keeping a really cool look and keeping, like, the armored look and the, intimidating presence. He actually ended up a lot more heroic looking than I initially imagined. I more imagined him to be something of a Swamp Thing sort of creature.
Yeah, you can kind of see it, especially in the facial area, It kind of resembles Swamp Thing.
Yeah, and it's, I think he took on more of a Spawn kind of appearance with Josh's art style.
Yeah, I'm picking that up. For sure.
Some of the concept art for that character, other characters that haven't been seen yet, will have concept art and other artwork that hasn't been released yet for our other titles like Marks and Credence and The Priest. Great. So we'll have concept art and cover art, things like that. Because Josh did the cover for Marks recently too, just to kind of get people kind of excited about it. And that worked. A lot of people are really excited about Marks.
I'm excited about Marks. I think it's going to be a good read.
I agree. Cassie's been putting in a lot of effort and energy into it. It's going to be fantastic.
Can't wait to see it when it gets here.
For some of the higher tiers, we have kind of a full bundle sort of thing. So you can go on and just click that and then you get everything. And then there's even higher tiers than that the bundle doesn't include, which are a few pictures that Josh drew. There's a Scullivan drawing he did for our cardboard cutout.
Oh, okay.
That we are taking to events and all that sort of stuff. We're also selling Walden's originals of issue number 3. So with the dragon, the wolf, and then the doll monster. That's that original. It was colored digitally, so it'll be black and white. It'll be his inks and pencils. And obviously signed by him, and he has a neat little sticker of authenticity that he puts on all of his pieces.
Oh, very cool, very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. And then we also have one of those for Jack and the Spider Wolf too.
Oh, nice.
The exclusive Kickstarter cover of the art book.
Where he's got the Spider Wolf on the leash and everything.
Yeah,
it looks all vicious.
And I was really excited about that picture because I wanted Walden to do an exclusive cover for this version of the book. We're going to be doing this book later in later years once we have more art. The poster was actually supposed to be the cover of this book.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I want something a little bit more unique to the Kickstarter. So I went to Walden again and we talked about it. We didn't have anything like specific in mind, but I remembered when we were talking about him doing the video, the Bleakheaven sponsored video on his YouTube channel.
Sure.
We were talking about different characters and different things, and he ultimately went with Skullivan because, I mean, he's one of our more iconic characters. He's the first issue.
Oh, goodness gracious. We all know how much freaking Walden loves the Skullivan. If you guys don't know that, go back to the previous episode where he just talks about Skullivan for about a half hour and how much he likes him.
He's a fun character.
You can't disagree with him. I mean, it's a really cool character. I mean, like, as soon as you see him, you know, it really grips attention.
I love it. And Walden's version was just really fun to see in general. That's one of the things I'm really excited about with Bleakheaven and growing Bleakheaven is I'm starting to see other artists' interpretations of not only what's in my head, but what Josh and Rufus have done. And it's been really cool to see all these different versions of the characters.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I'm excited to see that continue.
Because no one likes to see the same art, you know. We all want to see different kinds of art. I mean, if there were different ideas for different comic books, we wouldn't have, like, some of the greats.
That's true. And speaking of which, we did an event with Black Cat and Rogue Trader last month, and we're going to do that again, and they've already started on their exclusive variant covers of the next flip book.
Very cool.
And they've got an artist working on that themselves, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. So stay tuned for that as well.
Is it going to be like an event, or are they just doing the variant covers and stuff like that?
Yeah, we'll be having an event. I'm not at liberty to say too much about it because we're in the planning stages.
You're in the planning stages, of course, yeah.
But yeah, we'll be expecting another event this summer.
Oh, very cool.
Anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked. Back to the Walden story. So he picked Skullivan to do the YouTube video.
Sure.
But he was looking at the poster and he latched onto Jack, and Jack is my version of the Joker. Yeah. Because the Joker, Batman and the Joker have always been, like many people, I've been really attached to them and their relationship and how, just the psychology behind it.
And how iconic they are.
Yeah, exactly. Walden asked me about him, and I was telling him all about him, and he had this picture, the cover in mind. He told me about, like, he has this idea of him, like, holding one of the spider wolves with the chains, because Jack made the spider wolves. He created them. Oh, very cool. I don't know if that's a spoiler or whatever. I guess it is, but it's not a big deal.
It should, you know, that's pretty cool, you know, like, I mean, you gotta give a little to get a little, you know.
You're right. And it's on the cover, but yeah, Jack created them as like a guard animal sort of thing, like an attack dog. And so Walden told me about that picture he had with like Jack holding the spider wolf back with his, you know, his cool mask, and I got really attached to that. So when it came time to do the Kickstarter cover for the art book, I'm like, let's just do this. Let's just do the Jack one, just because I wanted to see it.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's such a cool piece in itself. I mean, because I don't think I've seen any, like, I mean, I saw your concept art for Jack, like, back when you were first starting, but I haven't seen it in, like, fruition with the rest of Bleakheaven, so it's been kind of cool to see that cover.
And I do love that cover. He's one of my favorite characters, but he's like, you know, if I created the Joker, this is what I would create.
Well, of course, yeah.
He's not really mentally ill. He's just kind of a nihilist.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The closest Joker that he's like would be kind of a mixture between the Heath Ledger Joker, Dark Knight, and the Mark Hamill Joker.
Oh, wow.
He's a mixture of the nihilism of Heath Ledger's Joker and the theatrics of the animated series.
Oh, okay.
Batman the Animated Series. But again, and then I add my own twist to him as well. So whereas he was kind of based off the Joker, it's kind of like how Cletus Cassidy Carnage was based off of the Joker.
Well, that's great. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with heavy inspiration. I mean, there's a lot of great characters that came from heavy inspiration, like Deadpool, you know, that came from Deathstroke.
That Jack picture, I love it. And he's the subject of issue number 5 as well.
Oh, so. Cool. So stay tuned for issue number 5.
Yeah, that's coming. That's coming. All of the issues for Welcome to Bleakhaven have been written.
Have they?
Yes.
So I don't know if you're at liberty to say, but like how many issues are there?
So they're all written.
Okay.
But they may change as we move forward.
Okay.
So right now there's 11 issues. So this Welcome to Bleakhaven was meant to be a miniseries, just this little short anthology to introduce the rest of our titles. And again, our main story that we're pushing to become an animated series.
Okay.
So right now I have 11 issues written, and most of these are going to be flip books. Most of them are going to be the shorter, not as short as the first one. They're gonna each one is probably gonna land between 10 and 15 pages.
Okay, cool.
Once we get to issue number 8 or issue number 9, after the last flip book, we'll have 3 separate full issues that will cover the 3 main characters of the main story.
Sure.
Kind of their backstory sort of thing.
Very cool, very cool.
We're getting into the stuff that you're going to be supporting if you support the Kickstarter, too.
Yeah,
so.
The faster you support the Kickstarter, the faster these comic books get out, really.
Yeah, and it's we have a ton of projects going right now. So, like I said, all of Welcome to Bleakhaven is written, and I know a lot of Mark's and a lot of Credence is written. Obviously not all of it, because we're setting them up to be long-running issues, or long-running stories, but we have several story arcs written. We're trying to get a head start while we're moving slow.
Oh, of course, yeah. You don't want to show up and be like, "Hey, I have the funding to make the comic book, but I don't have anything written," you know?
Oh, yeah. No, that's the best part about this, and again, this is what I would say to anybody who wants to write something is write.
Yeah.
Because writing is almost free. I mean, it can be free. All you need is a notebook and a pencil, and that's, go down to Walmart with $1 and you can get that. Or, you probably have a computer, you have probably a laptop or a phone, even using a cell phone to write. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's nothing more freeing, too. I mean, I think it's a great stress reliever, in my opinion.
It is. I think that another great piece of advice that I can give, I don't know if I'm at liberty to give advice or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Go full Walt Disney on these guys.
I will.
Give them all the inspiration you can.
If you want to write or draw or do anything and you want to get good at it, one, you're going to need people to critique you. That's super important. You got to learn how to take criticism.
Sure.
It's so important. And the other thing that I do is I set aside an hour every day to write. Because, I still have my day job. I still have to clean my house. I have to, go run errands and do all this stuff.
Oh, of course.
It's hard to get Bleakhaven done and do all that stuff, too.
Got to find the balance.
Yeah. So I set aside 1 hour every day where I'm not working on anything else in Bleakhaven. I'm not working on any of my other business stuff. I'm not working on my day job. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just writing. And that's what has really helped develop a lot of the stories that I've got right now.
I don't think I've ever asked this question, but have any of your stories been influenced through experiences in real life, or have they just been from inspirations from different comic books you've read?
There's a lot of real life experience, and there's a lot that come from personal experience. It's part of my writing philosophy, which is there are 2 sides to every story. There's the premise of a story, which is there's alien sharks coming to invade the world or whatever.
Okay. All right.
It's the silly it's
Sharknado.
Oh yeah, that's Sharknado. That's a premise
For sure.
A giant shark terrorizes a city, or it doesn't have to be sharks, obviously.
It could be anything. Yeah, exactly.
Literally anything, and that's the basis of the story. It's what gets people excited for the story. It's your hook.
That hook, right? Yeah.
It's oh, that's a cool idea. I want to see where that goes. That's the trailer for your movie. And then there's the other side of that coin, which is what makes the story worthwhile. And those are the real human emotions that go into the story. That's what makes the story. In the Skullovan book, that book is, about a giant monster man fighting something, a little monster.
Sure.
But deeper than that, Skullivan is about a man who's had this horrible thing thrust upon him.
Yeah.
And he's trying to make do with it, and he's trying to help people with it. He kind of had that responsibility thrust upon him, these superpowers, and obviously he's deformed as well.
Now he's got to come to terms with, how to deal with that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that everyone's been deformed or whatever, but everyone can relate to a character who doesn't know how to use what he has.
Sure.
Who wants to do more than what he has been doing, and he has to navigate the world in a new situation.
I mean, I think most people find themselves in that position every day. I think it brings more humanity towards, like, those storylines. And those are the best storylines to read, are the ones that really, like, grip your attention like that with humanity, And
I'm really excited to move forward with this, because it's my writing philosophy. Is like, in every single story we make, we infuse it with real human emotion, something that anyone can empathize with, anyone can understand, and it makes the story more real.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you can be there, like you can understand or be in that person's.
And that's a big thing I want to do with Bleakhaven, is I want people to feel listened to with this book, if that makes sense. With all our books, I want people to feel validation for how they feel in their own personal lives. I want them to feel like they're not alone. And I'm actually really excited moving forward again, because those are all main themes in The Priest and in Marks and in Credence. Those are going to be huge themes. And I'm particularly excited for Marks, because Cassie's created this character that's so, I don't know, she's just got really interesting abilities and weaknesses associated with them, and it's extremely unique. I've never seen that been done in comic book form, at least, before. And I'm not really at liberty to say, but
yeah, sure, yeah, of course.
But Cassie's made something so unique in my mind. It's so interesting, this character dynamic, and I think it's really human, and it's something that a lot of people can identify with, and that's what I'm really excited to get into. But and on top of that, there's robots and superpowered monsters, and
of course you have the appeal of watching them fight things that, of course, you would never. Well, you might see one day, but it's not going to happen on
maybe
a
in
daily,
your nightmares, mostly.
More like my dreams.
Oh man, there's some characters that we have planned that legitimately did appear in my nightmares before too.
Oh, so, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Bringing PTSD to the page.
Yeah,
right there.
It's gonna be fun, and there's just a lot of interesting dynamics we're gonna explore, and we're gonna talk about what it means to be a hero, what it means to be a person.
Sure.
And it's just in this dark world, and I think that for me the most interesting thing about Bleakhaven is the dichotomy, because I tried to match the dichotomy of our own world, which is a really depressing thought. The worst thing you can possibly think of somebody doing, somebody's probably doing worse right now.
It's true.
But again, the opposite is true too. Good is out there.
Yeah.
Good and evil exist, and good and evil exist more on a gradient. Nobody's 100% good, 100% evil. And so I think that in Bleakhaven, we want to talk about, that dichotomy of good and evil, the dichotomy of man.
Stop me if I sound cliche, but if you have that blank slate, you have that blank piece of paper,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the world. And that's how I picture the world. It's just that blank slate. But I mean, if it weren't for the wildlife and everything else and the people and their lives and everything affecting how that blank slate is, you wouldn't see. Every person's point of interest is different when it comes to the world. I've met a lot of people that are on both sides of the spectrum. I've met a lot of people who wake up every day feeling great, feeling happy. Nothing could be greater. And I've met other people who are like, you know what, I'd rather just stay in bed because it's a whole lot easier.
And that's what makes life interesting.
Sure.
It's not all the same thing. Nothing is the same. And I think that's what we try to capture with our comic books and our other stories. Is it's interesting to me seeing the dichotomy in the world, like people of different interests. And,
sure.
and I think that a lot of people have this kind of polar view of the world. It's like, oh, this is bad or this is good, which, yeah, there are good and bad things. But I think that, I guess if you step back and think of like sort of a Buddhist perspective of there's things that are good. There aren't any. There's no good. There's no bad. There just is.
Yeah, you know? I mean, good and bad is just like I said, it's just a point of interest. I mean, you can look at a situation and think, oh, that was horrible, but until you get there and you actually see it or experience it, you'll never truly understand if it was good or bad in your opinion.
And I don't say that there isn't good, there isn't bad, because I do think there's good and bad,
Oh, sure.
But I think it's important for each of us to understand what is good and bad, like to actually think through it, because every atrocity that ever happened in humanity happened because somebody either justified their actions when they knew it was wrong or they thought it was right.
Sure, of course.
With just to pull this back to the Kickstarter, this is the kind of stuff you're going to be supporting if you're able to support financially. We've got so many stories in line because we have these 2 titles, or we have Welcome to Bleakheaven, we have the 3 titles announced, which is The Priest of Bleakheaven, which I am writing.
Sure.
And then Donald Roos is working on Credence, which is going to be a lot of fun. He's really, I think he's knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
That one in particular, because that's like a lot like Mark's. It's really unique, and it reminds me a lot of the Chronicles of Narnia. That sort of, grand fantasy adventure with, coming to age sort of story with these kids and someone mentoring them. Of course, we have Mark's coming too, and those are just the books that we've announced.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of other titles in the works right now too.
Oh, sure, of course. You couldn't make a universe this grand without having more titles on the way.
Yeah, it's true. And so we have another flashback series coming that, again, I'm not going to say too much, but it takes place in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, nice.
And then The Priest of Bleakheaven takes place in the 80s. The priest in that story is the priest in the first book. Sure. It's the same. It's his story of how he became a hero.
Okay.
So, and that's another theory, a writing theory I have of mine, is the lineage of heroes, which sounds cool in my head.
Yeah, sounds cool out loud. The lineage of heroes.
The lineage of heroes, yeah. For example, Luke Skywalker is the hero of the original trilogy, right?
Yep.
I think that the hero of the prequel trilogy shouldn't have been Anakin, it should have been Obi-Wan.
Oh, of course.
Because Obi-Wan was the hero, and then he was the mentor. Heroes become mentors, and that's where this priest book comes from. Oh. These are his heroic deeds, how he became a hero, so to give him validity to be a mentor in the future.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, that's going to be cool. And then, again, we have a handful of other titles that are being worked on right now in the writing stages. We have more writers than just me, Cassie, and Donald. We have more artists, and it's just been slowly growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And I think that this Kickstarter will really help us push forward, and I could get 1 to 5 titles a month.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, if this Kickstarter works out.
I mean, talking to the folks at home, I mean, if you have any interest in Bleakheaven in itself, I mean, if you've picked up that first and second issue, that flip book, and read it, I mean, you're gonna pay for this Kickstarter, because it's just, the writing is just impeccable in itself. Like, you can't find this kind of writing in anything these days. I think it's getting bigger and better all the time. And
our writing is getting better, because
yeah.
I mean, I don't think I'm a great writer, but I'm getting better.
And that's the mentality you should have too. Yeah. You don't want to be you don't want to be up there and, I have such a high price for myself,
No.
Yeah. You want to be humble.
Well,
and that's what really brings storylines together, is like that humble mentality too.
And it is humility, because once you quote unquote know something,
that was the word I was looking for, was humility.
Once you know something, you can't get better, and you've limited yourself. Once you say, "Oh, I'm a good writer," or "I'm a good artist, I can do this stuff, I don't need to work on it anymore," you've limited yourself. You can no longer go higher. You can no longer get better.
Sure.
You can't become something more. And so I don't know if it's humility, but that's just a limit that I've vowed to never put on myself.
If you're that person who cares more and more about learning and learning and learning and learning and learning, you're gonna get farther along than someone who I just did it.
Oh man,
It was great.
And learning is incredibly important, and not just school. Like, if you want to be a writer, pay attention to every subject.
Yeah.
That's something that's super important. Pay attention. And again, you don't have to do this in school. There's YouTube videos. There's books you can read if you're a reader.
See, and I can personally vouch, I never learned a thing in school. But as soon as I graduated high school and I moved on later on in life, I started to learn more things. I mean, I can talk about black hole theory, and I could have never have done that in high school.
And that's super important for me, especially because a lot of what Bleakheaven has been a culmination of study, because it's based in a lot of religion, it's based in mythology, it's based in all of these different stuff, as influences from pretty much everywhere in the world. Yeah. And that's because I love learning, and that's one of the things that I like to do. And in my job, I don't have to really focus or pay attention, so I will oftentimes listen to science videos in the background, or writing theory, or other film critiques, stuff like that. And I'm constantly trying to take in as much knowledge as I can, and even from school, I picked up a lot of stuff in school. Mephistopheles came from something I studied in college. I studied the play Faust in college, and I got really attached to the character Mephistopheles, and I brought him into Bleakheaven and modernized him, updated him, and put my own twist on it. And I think that's a lot of things in Bleakheaven are that way. One of the things I really love to learn about is obscure mythology.
Sure.
Obscure things and crazy little stories. I love vampires, werewolves, and zombies as much as the next guy, but
of course, but
they're everywhere.
There's just so much of that everywhere you go. I can't even watch The Walking Dead, and I love Robert Kirkham. I've been watching Invincible left and right. I love it, but I can't do The Walking Dead just because it's like
are everywhere now.
Yeah, and it's just everywhere.
There's such a rich history of mythology all around the world. Like, there's rich African mythology, there's rich Asian mythology, there's Native American mythology, and even really obscure European mythology that no one talks about, and that have not appeared in pop culture or media. And I kind of want to change that, because there's a lot of stories that I think deserve attention. For example, the Snallygaster appears in the second book. That was an old legend that I thought was just so cool. It originally comes from Maryland, I believe.
Oh, cool.
The Snallygaster is like botched German, and I don't remember what the actual German term for Snallygaster is, but it's like quick ghost is what it translates to.
Okay.
It's so interesting to me, but I've never seen a Snallygaster before in media. They're not around. I've seen illustrations, some deviant art stuff, but I've never seen a story feature a Snallygaster.
No.
And even with vampires, there's so much uniqueness in different vampire legends that we don't have to have the same thing over and over.
No, of course not. I mean, it's like you can read or listen or watch Bram Stoker's Dracula,
and it's an amazing book.
It's great, but it's like
as well
there's
as
so many adaptations of the same thing, and you're just like, all right. As soon as you get past Gary Oldman, you're like, okay,
Well, and speaking of vampires, in my research, I came across the earliest known legend of a vampire in Ireland. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I have it in my notes. But the oldest known legend of a vampire from Ireland, he was a dwarf.
Cool.
And that's just neat.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course. See, with me, with like most of these mythologies, like I enjoy, of course I enjoy the final product of most mythologies, you know, where you have a vampire and stuff like that. But I also like how people perceived those things too, and then that's how that was created. I know one day there wasn't just some random dude who just saw some like guy sucking on some person's neck, you know, looking for blood. You know, I'm sure it was, or it's the same thing with like, you know, maybe the witch trials like back in, you know, back in the day, you know.
It's a combination of a lot of things that people didn't understand. And I think that's the psychology behind that's fascinating because, like, again, for vampirism, a lot of those stories come from like tuberculosis, because the disease was very similar to what a vampire was said to look like.
Sure.
And there's a lot of other diseases and things that people did and believed in, and the psychology behind it is completely fascinating. Going back to these monsters that we've seen over and over again, I think they get less scary every time because you know the rules. You understand, you know, how to beat them.
When you see 50 versions of the same thing, it's not as scary as the first time you saw that thing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's what, you know, I want to do with Bleakheaven is along the horror aspect of it, with the creature aspect. I'm a big fan of creatures and monsters and movies and media. Again, there's just so many unique things out there that are terrifying.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. Ever heard of a Wendigo?
Yeah.
You know?
Wendigos,
most people haven't.
It's true. Wendigos are freaking terrifying.
They are terrifying.
And again, the psychology behind the Wendigo is really interesting too, because it's a cautionary tale. It's like people can become their worst in times of crisis.
Sure.
Not only that, it's about greed and consumption, and the psychology behind all this stuff is really fascinating, and these monsters are really fascinating, and I think that a lot of different mythologies deserve a little bit more time in the limelight in pop culture.
These things have been around for years, but like they're not popular. But like bringing these into a more popular light, you can have you can customize them to your own advantage.
And that's what we've all been doing is we're changing the myths, we're making the myths work for us. You know, they're inspired. Sure. In Credence, one of the main characters is a Mothman, and that's obviously inspired by the Mothman legends. Donald did a great job taking those legends and then kind of adapting them, morphing into a really unique story, again, with human elements that fit into the universe of Bleakheaven.
No, of course. Because no one wants to read a comic book where some dude dresses like a moth and then like gets zapped by a tower sized, you know, like zapper.
I don't know, I might read that.
Yeah, who knows, you know? What if you saw it in real life? I mean,
might be fun. I don't know.
It'd be cool.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we're working on, and we're still working on different YouTube shows and trying to get all this stuff out to people, because one of the things I'm excited about for YouTube is we have the podcast up on YouTube now, so
yeah,
we had quite a few people request it, so you're welcome.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's right. You're welcome.
Because this will be on YouTube, as well as our different podcast streaming services. I'm just excited to get this stuff into more people's hands, so to speak, because one of the big things we want to do with Credence especially, Credence is our young adult book. And one of the things Donald was telling me the other night, he says, I want to write this and I want to keep going on it and I want to make it free.
Of course.
I'm like, yeah, of course you do.
Yeah.
We live in a world of this amazing technology where we can start experimenting with different mediums. We don't have to just do traditional comic books. And I really like doing traditional comic books, and we're going to do that.
Oh, of course, because there's just nothing more authentic
than
a traditional comic book.
There's nothing like picking up a book and reading it. I love it. Of course,
yeah.
But at the same time, Donald's writing this for a young adult version of himself.
Oh.
And he wasn't able to get comic books. And I'm sure a lot of people our age had a hard time getting comic books unless you live in a bigger city. I
certainly did. I lived in, because when I lived in a small town, I didn't get to go to a comic book store till I graduated high school. I never really got to go do that. I got to go to a Comic-Con one time. Every comic book I ever read was online. That was the only way I could do it.
And so we're exploring these different avenues to give kids and other people who won't necessarily have access to the physical books.
True.
We're trying to give them an avenue to be involved in the story, because for us it's not really about the money. The Kickstarter, it's going to be nice to have a little bit of money to get us going and help us make these stories.
See, and it's nice to have, don't get me wrong, I mean, it's not like you're sitting over here, you're not Scrooge McDuck looking, all greedy, but you want to see it be successful. You want to see, you want to bring those characters and those stories, and you want people to read it and understand it, but it's also nice to get that paycheck.
For me, I would just love to pour my effort into it.
Sure.
I would love to just do this. If I could just do this, I could bring a lot more stories to people.
Because
and that's
you could have all of your focus onto those stories too.
Exactly. And that's what I'm focused on. Is I honestly truly believe that the stories we're telling are important. And I'm not necessarily just mine, but I think especially Cassie and Donald's stories are important. I think that there are people, especially kids in Donald's case, that need to hear those stories and need something like that to latch on to.
Oh, of course. I mean, there's a lot of, or even kids and stuff who are just some people, they just need that feeling, that comfort from something.
They need validation, and they need some good morals and some good strong stories, something worth reading.
Sure.
Something, maybe it's a little bit of escapism.
Yeah.
Maybe at the same time it validates some hard feelings you're feeling, and
absolutely,
that's what we want to do.
Well, in my opinion, that was the appeal. When I truly enjoyed starting to read comic books, I could go in through life and it was great, whatever, but it wasn't like until I started reading comic books and then getting into stories and the morality of these situations that these characters get into. And then that I found that it reflects in real life. Sometimes you find yourself in those situations and it's like, what would that character have done,
Yeah, and I think that these stories are important, because I was the same way. I think Spider-Man was my biggest inspiration as a kid. I wanted to be like Spider-Man. I wanted to be a good person, and Spider-Man helped me learn how to be a good person.
I'm the same way. But that's the best part about Spider-Man, is because Spider-Man wasn't just like some dude swinging around, off of the Empire State Building. He was that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He was helping the little guy every chance he could get.
And that's what's important. I think that's what kids and people need to see, not just kids.
Sure.
We all need to see people working to help at any capacity.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We need see people helping the community. We need to see people helping their neighbor and their friends, and even people that aren't their friends, even their enemies, strangers.
It's always easier to work together than it is to, be apart. I mean, it's that you get more accomplished with sugar than salt,
That's true. This just came to mind, but there's a C.S. Lewis quote that I really like. Basically, he says, it's cruel to take away stories of brave knights in conflict away from children, because they're going to have conflict in their own lives.
Of course.
And they need to see that you can persevere and overcome it.
You have to. You have to persevere and overcome it.
Yeah.
Because, if you don't, you're just going to be stuck in doing the same thing over and over. That's what the human race does on a constant daily basis, is we just never learn from our mistakes. Sometimes we do. Sometimes. But not all the time.
Well, that's again, that goes back to the dichotomy of the world. There's people who learn and grow, there's people who regress, and there's people that kind of stay where they are, stagnate.
Yeah.
That's kind of my worst fear in life, is stagnation.
No, of course.
I can't do it. If I was stuck at my desk job for the rest of my life, that would be fine. But if I didn't have something else to work on, I don't know how long I'd last.
I'm the same way. Have you ever watched the movie Office Space?
Yeah.
With Ron Livingston. That, in my opinion, is the best.
No, I understand.
No one wants to be stuck in the same situation, but at the same time, it's all like, you can get yourself out of that situation, but you know, you want to be smart enough to find yourself in a better situation than what you were.
You just gotta progress. You just gotta try to keep moving forward. You gotta decide what your life's purpose is. You gotta decide what you want and how to work for it. And that's, you know, kind of, that's like a sub-theme of the second book. Because Adam is sort of the main character of that book, and he found his way into the cult because he was living that desk job.
Sure.
But he didn't have anything outside of it. He didn't have anything he was working for. And that's a dangerous place to be in because a lot of people can prey on those kind of people, and they do prey on those kind of people.
Of course.
And you know, it's kind of the allegory of the cult. I know that there were some people who really didn't like that book. Because they felt like Adam was trapped there and it wasn't his fault. And that makes sense, and I understood where they're coming from, but those are the kind of people that the cult preys on.
Yeah, of course.
And the cult can be, you know, compared to a lot of different things in life.
Oh, a million different things.
And that's kind of the point of it, is it's not, the cult in the book isn't one thing. There are a million different things that want to take advantage of you.
Sure.
And they'll take advantage of your weakened states. And I've been there. I've been taken advantage of, not to that capacity, obviously.
I think everybody has, to be honest.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And when you find yourself in those positions, you just got to kind of find your resolve and breathe and figure out how to move forward.
Exactly. No one wants to be stuck there.
If you ever feel stuck, then there's a way out. As difficult as it may be to find a way out, you can always do something, and a lot of times there's people around to help. But even if there's not people around to help, you can move forward and you can find someone to help. And then you can be the person to help in the next situation, because you're going to meet somebody in your life who has been through the same thing as you, and you can be that person you didn't have.
Sure, you can be that deciding vote. You can help that person do something better. And I mean, sometimes it can be just as easy as, you know, trying to work towards finding something better, or just, you don't even have to work. You just do it, you know?
Yeah.
Just put forth that effort towards bettering yourself and that ability.
And I don't like the phrase, you know, with a little hard work you can do it. You know, you can make anything happen with hard work.
I'm sure,
it's
but
not.
It's outdated in my opinion.
It is outdated, and it's the wrong way to look at it, in my opinion. Hard work isn't the key to your life being a success. Hard work is a prerequisite.
It's a stepping stone to what, you know.
It's a quality you need to have.
Sure, of course.
But I know people who work a lot harder than me. I know people who, you know, I love to death that are in fast food. They work way harder than I have ever worked in my life. And they're getting paid good money for it, but like... Sure,
but they're not coming back happy and, you know...
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
they're not fulfilled. They're not building anything. And I don't want to dunk on fast food, because that's a legitimate form of work. Like, that's a good way to make a living. And I think that, you know, I worked in fast food for a while, and I think that... I guess not fast food, but I worked in the restaurant industry. And I think that's sort of an important place for people to get some experience. And there's nothing wrong with people who work there. For me and a lot of people I know, it's just not fulfilling. And,
it's not fulfilling, because, I mean, when you're sitting there, and I can vouch, I worked in the fast food industry. Mm-hmm. When you're sitting there and you feel stuck. Yeah, that paycheck's great. Well, it's, you know, it's only important. It's important, you know. But it's not, it's what you take from that place, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not just, in my personal opinion, when I worked at the fast food place, I never thought of the job itself. I thought of the people that I worked with.
Exactly. And that makes it better, as you work with the people, and that can be fulfilling. And I know people who have worked in fast food their whole life, and they're like managers, they're very successful in the fast food industry, and they're really happy there. And I think that that's awesome. But those are the kind of jobs you can get stuck in. And like we're talking about, like there's a way out. You can do something, and it takes time and it takes effort. Progress. That's all I can say. Progress.
Be open to new things. See what's coming at you, but also prepare for what's coming at you.
Yeah.
Well, you know?
And something that I think affects a lot of my friends and a lot of people I know is they feel like they're they don't have any control of where they go, or they feel like there's too much control. You know what I mean? Like, there's too many choices. Like, I could go do this, I could go do that. What if it's the wrong thing? And my advice is, there is no wrong thing.
Don't stress on the choice.
Just do something.
Yeah.
And if it's not right, you move on from something.
Yeah,
I mean, I
exactly.
went to film school. I wanted to be a director, and I mean, that's still an ultimate goal of mine, is to direct film. But right now, I'm doing comic books because I can do it, and it's awesome. It's very similar. Like, doing comic books is very similar. Being an editor on a comic book is very similar to being a director, and I've taken a lot of the skills I learned through that process and brought them to the table here. And it's been fascinating to watch and see how all these different skills I've picked up have come into help with creating these comic books, because I never imagined this is where I would be. I have always loved comic books, and I've thought about it. I've daydreamed about it a lot growing up.
Of course.
But I never thought I would end up making my own comic book company. But I did. And that was just kind of a series of me progressing and realizing I can do this, and then putting in that hard work.
Oh, sure. I mean, you can put forth that hard work too, but I mean, it's like, you don't want to. It's not the stress of the hard work itself. It shouldn't feel stressed at all. You should feel good about what you're doing.
Yeah, you should. I think that you should have, you should feel good about yourself. You should feel good about what you're doing, and you should try to progress in a good, positive way. You should make a positive impact on your community, make a positive impact, on yourself. You need to be okay with yourself, and you need to understand what you can and can't do. Because that's another huge lie, is you can do anything, you can't do anything. I can't go be an NBA basketball player.
Not now.
I couldn't have done that. No, from a child, I could have not done that. There's no way I could have done that. Nor did I want to. But that's
exactly. But I mean, it goes with that, like, you don't want to. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, of course, it's not like you can be anything. It's like, oh, I want to be Superman. You can't be Superman because you don't have the ability to become Superman.
But even that, like, normal things, like, there are a lot of things I've wanted that I couldn't do, just because of who I am, my own limitations. And everybody has limitations.
Sure.
There are people born who cannot walk that love basketball. I've met somebody who he can walk, but, like, very limited, and he loved basketball. Like, that's what he wanted to do.
Sure.
But he can't. There's no way. There's no physical way for him to do that. And you gotta sit down and you gotta think, okay, I can't do this, and you gotta grieve for it. You can feel bad about it.
Oh, of course.
And then what you gotta do is figure out, well, what can I do? And then you gotta do something.
Yeah. You gotta find. Well, I mean, you have to look at the situation in itself, and you have to determine whether, this situation is right for you, or if it's, it. And at the same time, it's like, most of these times, I know a lot of people who go into doing stuff that it's like their parents or their friends or pressured them into doing.
I know a ton of people like that.
And then they sit around and they're like, oh, but it's the only thing I've ever known. It's all like, well, if it's the only thing you've ever known, that's pretty depressing.
And
you should move on.
You can do something else. I knew a man in my hometown who owned a music shop, and he learned how to play an instrument at 70 years old. He was 80 when I met him. He was 70 years old when he learned how to play an instrument. Then he had a music shop. You can do something. And I think a big thing that a lot of people think is like, well, what if I do something and then it's a waste of time? Or, I'm so far into this thing, and then if I leave, it's been a waste of time. None of it has been a waste of time. You've been developing and growing as a person, and you can transfer those skills.
The only person who's going to think it's a waste of time is you, the person doing that thing. But it's like, it's not a waste of time. You never know when you're going to find that ability, or you're going to that ability is just going to randomly show up one day. I mean, I could talk about construction, and I never even worked in the construction industry, but I know about it,
And, like, I was a pizza delivery driver. That wasn't a waste of time. That gave me a lot of valuable insight on people, and it taught me a lot about myself. It wasn't a waste of time to go to school, because, I mean, it would cost a lot of money. But it wasn't a waste of time to go to college, because I learned, again, a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the world. I learned a lot about other people. And I learned interesting subjects that I brought into Bleakheaven now. And that's one thing. I was talking to another friend. He worked for a company for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then left. He was fired. And he's talked about how it was a waste of his time. And I don't believe it's a waste of time.
No.
None of it was a waste of time. And you can keep moving forward. And the problem with the waste of time mentality is, okay, now you think you've wasted time, so you're going to waste more time? It's
exactly.
counterintuitive, but that's where it traps you.
Yeah, exactly. I know so many people, and I've met so many people who are always just focused on that one thing, and it bothers to me to my core. I can't do it. Maybe it's just my ADHD talking. You know, I have so many. I can't picture myself only doing one thing at one certain time because it just sounds so monotonous and so, you know, it's you know, it's
the
horrible.
stagnation.
The stagnation.
I think it's hard to be in that spot, and I've been in that spot. I've been in the spot where like I can't do anything. I don't have any people.
You have that, but it's like you don't feel like they're there.
You feel alone and helpless. Yeah. That's a common feeling, and it's a really hard feeling to get through, and that's the feeling of loneliness and being alone. That's something that I'm fascinated with. You know, you talk to anybody our age, they talk. You know, you really talk to them. They talk a lot about being lonely. A lot of people are lonely. Most people are lonely, and that's just insane because we have so much technology. We can talk to literally anybody in the world, yet we're sitting here lonely and sad and. Those are hard feelings, and again, these are feelings that I want to infuse in the Bleakheaven books and in the Bleakheaven stories, just because they're so human and so relevant today, of this hopelessness and suffering that we all have, and different levels of suffering as well. For me, suffering is an interesting topic because I suffer, but not to the same extent that Cassie suffers, right? And there's no way to really measure it against each other, but we can relate to each other.
Exactly.
We can be like, okay, yeah, I don't understand how this specific thing makes you feel, but I understand feeling bad. I understand hurting. I understand pain.
Sure.
I understand this, that, or the other, and we can relate to each other. I think that the problem with pain is we compare it to other people's, and we think, oh, our pain's not significant enough, so I should just shut up. Or my pain's way worse than yours, so you need to shut up. No, we can just talk about it, and we can all understand that we all have difficulties and we all have struggles, and I think it's our responsibility as fellow humans to help each other through that pain and to understand each other and have that empathy.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things I want to do with the company as a whole, not just the stories or anything, you know.
Sure, you can build a company off of just straight company values, and like you can keep it really business oriented.
No, synthetic.
Synthetic, yeah. The most successful companies are in the world are the ones that can like relate to every person who works within that company.
And that's another thing that we're really excited to do, is open this up for more people who want to make comic books or make stories. Rufus likes to talk about the story bug. He says that we all here at Bleakheaven have this story bug where we have to tell stories. It's like it's in our nature. It's in who we are to tell stories. And I would agree with him. I think that it's just super important to tell stories, and I think that a huge tragedy in this world is there's a lot of people who have that bug who don't have the outlet to tell those stories.
True. I feel like there's a lot of people out there. You're right. They don't have an outlet for these things. Everywhere you go, every person you talk to has got a story. Whether it's a story, whether it's a grand scale like a comic book, or or it's just, hey, I went down to the store and this random dude was on the corner. I think that's what really adds to what makes humanity so great. We look at a situation and then we want to tell people just exactly how weird and how we felt that situation.
Oh, it's communication. Communication is the most important part of the human experience.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, there's not really a point.
Sometimes it's nice to sit around and have that peace and quiet. Mm-hmm. I enjoy being around people. I haven't had an experience with a person that I haven't ever learned off of. I haven't built a better experience or a better personality for myself based off other people.
Yeah, it's important to go and socialize. And I mean, I'm incredibly introverted, but at the same time, it's really important to talk to people and to engage in conversation, even if it's uncomfortable conversation. I think those are some of the best conversations looking back, are the uncomfortable ones, of the being, oh, this person has a different opinion than me. Ugh, that sort of opinion, sort of thing. But then you actually talk to that person, get to know the person, and then get to understand their views and their viewpoints and come to an understanding. That's one of the most beautiful things in the world.
Exactly. And it's like, I haven't gone into a conversation or had a conversation with a single person without... I haven't sat there and just... I don't value your opinion. I think I'm going to listen to your opinion, but I don't value it. And it's like, I can't justify that. I can't stand it. Sure, there's a lot of people that are going to differ in a lot of different things, but it's like, of course, I'm going to be open to what you're adding to the table. You've taken this time to actually bring it to the table.
And I think that the hardest part of humanity is this us versus them mentality, in-group, out-group.
Yeah.
Because in all reality, there is no in-group, out-group. We're all unique and different, and we all have different motivations. We all have different goals. We have different this, that, or the other, and some people are more empathetic, less sympathetic, whatever. But deep down, people are people. And
you're not going to find another person that hasn't had the similar experiences that you haven't had. Obviously, me and you might not be exactly the same, but we have shared experiences that are similar, and we can understand that.
We can relate to anything. And again, the differences also bring beauty into the world. Yeah. Like, the differences are so important. Because if we all had the same person, the world wouldn't work. The world could not function with the same kind of person. We need everybody. We need all the varieties.
Exactly. We need all hands on deck.
Yeah, we need all of it. But at the same time, like, our similarities outweigh our differences. And I think that's the big thing that I think is important to understand is, like, you could go talk to anybody in the world, and if you can get over your differences, you're going to find a lot more similarities.
Very much agreed. And the one thing we can all come together on is that you should get onto that Kickstarter and
of course,
get some Bleakheaven.
And if you can't support us financially, we're on social media, the YouTube channel, everything else. There's a lot of other avenues to help support us and, giving us feedback on all this sort of stuff. We love talking to the community. It's been so much fun talking to the people who read the book and getting excited about stuff with them and seeing the different posts and getting excited about the art. So there's a lot of ways to support. It doesn't just have to be financial, and we vastly appreciate everything you do for us and all the support you give us. So thank you.
So definitely get on there. Check out that Kickstarter.
Thanks for having me on my podcast.
Of course. Any time. You're always welcome to your podcast.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have been the Birdman. This is Welcome to Bleakheaven. Catch us next time. We'll see you then.